An 1880s ordinary farmhouse transformed into a sprawling mansion. The owner, a reclusive widow and heir to the Winchester rifle fortune. For years, the sound of hammers rang from the grounds, and construction was said to never cease. Was it the workings of a madwoman? Was she simply following the wishes of the departed? They say the truth lies in between. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. We are on episode 31. Y'all, 31. Holy crap. How did we get here? Anyways, I am Blake Smith, and as always, with my partners in the paranormal, I have with me Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts.
Hello.
Still can't get over 31. Anyways, y'all, it's just jamming out to that theme song every time it starts playing. I'm just do. Anyways, y'all, first off, how are y'all doing tonight?
I'm good.
I'm overly excited. I can't help it.
I know you've been excited about this all week.
Try the last 3 weeks for sure.
Yeah.
I've been knee deep in research the last 3 weeks for sure. So I'm ecstatic to bring this to y'all. We're going to be talking about Sarah Winchester tonight and the Winchester Mystery House. And this was one of the first ones that I ever stumbled across in the paranormal. It's one of the first subjects I ever picked up. And I picked it up right after my very first paranormal experience at the age of 13. And if you haven't heard those stories, go back and check out, I think it's episode 9. It's Paranormal Origin Stories. And we tell
origin story,
how we all got started in the paranormal and what was the first thing that happened. So that's pretty interesting. But this is literally the first subject I picked up after my first experience. So you could say I've been researching it for God knows how many years, decades at this point. So it's all accumulating into tonight. So I'm going to be presenting a new theory and a new conclusion that I have. And Shelley, I am ready for you. Fire away, sister. I am ready.
Okay.
So anyways.
We do you guys, we do this to each other. Like we'll be talking on the phone and stuff, and it'll be like it'll be like, save it for the podcast. And I'll be like, oh no, I got some questions for you. And Blake be like, oh, I got one for you. So I'm like, bring it. I'm ready for you. So that's kind of our, it's like, I'm ready for whatever you have to say. Come on now.
Yeah.
And then they'll use me as the tiebreaker.
See, we've already determined, and if you'll watch the pre-broadcast that we'll post tomorrow, we've already determined Ryan's the nice one. Me and Shelley are the assholes. We get it. We know.
We know. Which is why Ryan always goes, I don't know. I can see both y'all's points.
Yeah.
No, get on one side of the fence or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
There has to be a winner.
Uh-oh.
You have to be the deciding factor. See, he won't even decide for us. He just cuts away.
Yeah, he just cuts away rather than be part of the conversation.
Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, my power just went out again.
Oh, that's lovely. Well,
you know what though? We can hear you. So just hang
just
where
roll
you are.
with it.
It's all cool.
Yeah, just hang where you are. It's all.
You'll be the voice in the darkness.
Dang it! They already got Ryan. They already got Ryan.
Shit, I got to tell you, Ryan and I were talking about some interesting crap after you got off the phone last night. So FBI Fred might have been listening.
He might have been. He might have cut the.
Okay, I will tell you, my camera is still on, but it's just that dark in here right now.
Well,
So-
I will say,
You have a flashlight?
I will.
I'd have to go get my kid out of the garage.
Go get it.
That's my
We'll
ghost light
wait.
in it.
No, we'll
Um,
start. Blake,
yeah,
start,
we'll-
and Ryan
we'll-
can
we'll
just come
start.
and hold his flashlight on his face.
I will say though, Ryan, you've never
Yeah.
looked more beautiful. I will say that.
And that is why Blake and I are the assholes.
Exactly.
Shit,
Speaking of
I'll make this
assholes,
podcast look good. What you talking about?
Oh, let's jump into this. I've got a lot to tell y'all
Let's
about.
go.
This is an
Mhm.
interesting one. Okay, so of course we're gonna kick it off with Miss Sarah Winchester herself. So Sarah Winchester is born in the summer of 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. Now,
Mhm.
I'm already going to stop and add a footnote here. I will say there are multiple sources that contest her birth year, and actually state that there's no factual documentation as to when to establish that. I even did genealogical research on her myself. I was unable to find it. However, we're going to go with the summer of 1839 because the author who wrote a biography of her did a very extensive research dive into her family lineage. So that's what we're going with. Summer of 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut is when she was born. And her parents were Leonard Party, and that is P-A-R-D as in dog, E-E,
Okay.
not party in the USA, party, hey, but Pardee. Pardee, yes. And her mother was Sarah Burns, and she was the fifth out of 7 children. Now, the Party family, they were a very respectable upper class family in New Haven, Connecticut. Her father was a woodworker by trade. He kind of started at the city bathhouse collecting the tolls for the wealthy that would come and pay and to bathe there. That's just how it was back in that day.
That just sounds creepy. Give me your
No,
money and
doesn't
go
it,
get.
though?
It's like
Yeah.
give me your money and go get naked.
Yeah, exactly. But
Kind of be like Ryan in the dark right there. Say it, Ryan. Like, give me your money and go get naked.
Naked.
naked, not naked, naked. That's how you know you're up to something.
N-E-K-K-I-D. Naked.
Exactly. So her father, he had a really good business sense about himself. So he ended up climbing the social ladder rather quickly. He ended up teaming up with a machinist. Well, okay. I guess machinist, metal worker dude. I don't know. Forming a company.
That would be machinist. You're correct.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Forming a company called Leonard Party and Company. And it was a large mill and wood shop. And he would end up making his fortune during the Victorian era with his skills as a craftsman and producing Victorian architecture like spindles, moldings, wainscoting, stuff like that. And her mother was very popular in the echelons of New Haven society.
Ah.
You know, she was over there, you know, her
She was drinking
societal,
tea with her pinky up, right?
her societal teas and stuff.
Drinking tea, playing croquet.
Sorry, y'all. It's really weird to hear Ryan's voice and not see him.
We're gonna make it through though. We're gonna make
We
it through. We're gonna power through.
Maybe it'll come back on here soon. But anyway.
So her family had been in the New Haven, Connecticut area since around the time it was founded, honestly. Her 4 times great-grandfather, George Party, he immigrated to America after he was chastised for hardline Puritan statements and beaten so badly he walked with a limp for the rest of his life.
Jesus.
What
Yeah.
kind of statements was he making?
Just very hardline Puritan statements. That's all that I was able to find. That's all it
I'm not
said.
sure what that means, though.
Just very...
No dancing.
Religious
very religious
statements.
Very
Okay.
religious statements.
And somebody didn't like the fact that he loved the Lord, decided to beat the hell out of him.
He was saying things that went against what they were teaching, basically. And
Oh.
so they didn't.
So
like
he
that,
was a
so-
backsliding Puritan.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay,
So,
I'm with you now.
And what's interesting, the last name Pardy actually derives from an old French oath, which I'm going to totally mispronounce. Pardieu. Actually, I don't think I
Okay.
mispronounced that, but anyways, which means by God. So this was like an unflinching religious convictions. That's what this man had. I mean, but he would be the one that would work his family up into society. And I promise this is important stuff. So I'm telling y'all the backstory of her family. His son, Joseph Party, would end up, which is Sarah's 3 times great grandfather, ended up marrying Elizabeth Yale. I think we would all recognize
the
that
university
last name.
Yeah.
of the Yale University. Okay.
Married Elizabeth Yale. Her cousin married Elizabeth Yale, the benefactor for Yale College, Elihu Elihu. Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. Elihu. Elihu.
Okay.
Elihu. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. She was the cousin. Sorry. Elizabeth Yale was the cousin to Elihu Yale, who's the benefactor for Yale College.
All right.
And then even Sarah's grandfather, Joe Party, after he passed away, her grandmother remarried Eli Goodyear, which I think we all recognize that last name
Of
too.
Goodyear Tires?
Oh, yeah.
Of Goodyear Tires. Yes. So this family started very bedraggled and worked their way up. So around the time that Leonard Party moved his family and created this company, there was another family that moved in right down the street. And from 1850 to 1852, the Winchester family lived very close down the street to the Party family. And the children of these two households paired off very well. They had older daughter. Each one had older daughters that paired off. Each one had younger daughters that paired off. They each had a son that paired off that were born the same year. And the only one that was kind of left to herself that didn't really pair off with anybody was Sarah. She was an 11-year-old and she wasn't in the right age range.
Same age with the other
Correct.
children.
With the other children. And she was a
Aw.
girl, not a male. So you kind of even see this thing prior to her adolescence that she is this, I hate to use the word loner, but loner and kind of independent thinker.
Yeah.
She tends to
she's-
isolate.
Very, very introverted. Very,
Yes.
wants to stay inside. Kind of enjoys doing her own thing and not necessarily with everybody else.
Right.
Mhm.
And so she basically pushes herself into her student work, I guess her school work, however you want to classify it. By the time she was 12, she was fluent in 4 languages, Latin,
Wow.
French, Spanish, and Italian. She was considered a child prodigy by some due to her knowledge
Wow.
of classical literature, of Shakespeare and Homer Simpson. Just kidding. Just making sure y'all are paying attention.
Odyssey and the Iliad, Homer.
Yep.
Not not Doe.
Exactly. And also her proficiency in musical composition, science, math, and her remarkable talents on the piano as a musician herself. I mean, this girl was
She's smart.
hella
Just-
smart.
Super cultured.
Yes, very.
Mhm.
And not only that, but by every account that I read, she was considered to be very beautiful. And New Haven Society ended up dubbing her the Belle of New Haven.
Okay.
So, I
Mute
guess
your
we're getting
mic,
the
Ryan.
I guess we're getting the electricity figured
Sorry.
out on Ryan's side.
Hold on a second, guys. What's that?
Mute your mic.
Mute your mic.
Yeah, you're fine, man. I'm running data. It's okay. No worries, bud.
Mute your mic, Ryan. Mute your mic, Ryan.
I don't have that option. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. All right. So
Anyway.
as Sarah was growing up, she would come and go from her
Uh-huh.
father's wood shop as she pleased, and she watched her father basically as like 5 generations worth of woodworking knowledge poured forth into his skill of these Victorian architecture. And of course, that is something that we will see later on in her life's work, what
Mhm.
becomes her life work. Now, one other thing that I think is rarely mentioned that I think is very powerful and important to Sarah's story is what the hell was happening in New Haven society at the time that she is developing and being influenced, like her mind and stuff, from a young girl into womanhood and beyond. She ended up attending and being admitted into Yale University, or Yale College as it was originally known, into their only female scholastic institution known as the Young Ladies Collegiate Institute.
Now, granted, she already had an in, but she was
Right.
smart enough to get in there.
She
It wasn't
was
like
smart
she
enough,
was
yeah.
handed the opportunity.
Exactly.
She earned it.
Sorry, and I meant to pop this picture up too for y'all. My bad.
She is very
Um,
pretty.
Yeah, she's
very
very
pretty.
Yeah, she's.
Very pretty.
Mhm.
And so,
Very delicate features too. Everything
she does.
about her looks very delicate.
yes, she does. Now, from its inception, tell you a little bit about Yale College. We're going to deviate from Sarah just real quick. From its inception, Yale and New Haven itself was like this hub of very progressive thinking. But not only that, Yale was a hub of what they classified as Freemasonic or Rosicrucian thinking and activity. So,
So
Which
gonna
road do you want
very-
to run down first?
we are going to
Yeah.
walk these roads, so y'all bear with me, but I am going to put it into summary for each one of y'all so it makes sense
Yeah.
at the very end of all of this. So bear with me while I explain one other thing before I get to that. 2 of the school's most influential administrator and professors were Judson A. Root and his brother N.W. Taylor Root. Both of these guys taught Sarah, and they were both Rose Croix Freemasons. And they set forth a very strict curriculum that consisted of science and mathematics and liberal arts. And at this, well, I guess growing up, you could say, Sarah had a lot of relatives, uncles, and cousins who were also Freemasons. Now, Freemasons, I'm not going to pretend like I am one, but from what I was able to research, it boils down to two beliefs. They believe in the existence of a supreme being and immortality of the soul. Now, Rosicrucian teachings is a little bit more in depth. It is a combination of occultism and other religious beliefs and practices, which includes Hermeticism, Jewish mysticism, and Christian Gnosticism. And a central feature of their teachings is that their members possess secret wisdom that's handed down from ancient times. These are the people that are teaching Sarah. Okay.
Very out of the box thinkers for the time, very progressive thinkers, but also that incorporated knowledge from the past.
Yes.
As being, and including mystical.
Yeah. So lots
teachings.
of mysticism.
A lot of like mystical and celestial mysteries is what I gathered from reading all of this.
I bet Sarah Winchester believed in aliens.
Now, is it Yale that also has a Skull and Bones Society as well? Is that Yale?
Oh, don't get me lying, because I didn't come across that in my research. I know that the Skull and Bones is in takes place in California, because that is actually brought up later on in this story.
Oh, okay.
So I know it is present in California. As it pertains to Yale, I do not know. I did not come across that information.
Okay.
One of our viewers will pop that up. I think you're right, Ryan. I think that is Yale. See, don't give me line.
So you have a whole other secret society on top of the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons and then Skull and Bones.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, you can tell that this is a very progressive area.
There's a thread. Yeah.
And one of the things I found fascinating is why she's in school. She's schoolmates with these two girls, and their names are Susan and Rebecca Bacon. And they were daughters of a very respected reverend in the area. His name was Dr. Leonard Woolsey Bacon. So now Dr. Bacon has a sister. Follow me here. You got the two daughters over here, Dr. Bacon up above. He's got a sister over to the side. Her name is Delia Bacon. Okay. Paula just said, I love bacon. I do too. Now, Delia Bacon, she's also a New Haven resident as well. She gained some fame. There's Ryan. She gained some fame and attention when she wrote an infamous treatise stating that Sir Francis Bacon, no relation, tell you about Sir Francis Bacon in just a second. Sir Francis Bacon was actually the actual author, editor, and publisher of the original Shakespeare works. And this is something that would become known as the Baconian Doctrine. And this is happening in the time that Sarah is there with her friends, being the niece of this woman. And this is something that is backed up by Ralph Waldo Emerson, Mark Twain, Nathaniel Hawthorne.
The great writers of the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so to me, she's proficient with Shakespearean work. She has an interest in Shakespearean work. So there's going to be almost like this irresistible force that would be drawing her to this new theory. And it is fascinating. By the way, Francis Bacon, he's an English philosopher. He's considered the father of empiricism. His works are a contribution to scientific method and scientific revolution, all that kind of stuff. So, and he is also very out there with his thinking, out of the box. So that's kind of what's happening in the time frame of her going to school, growing up as a young woman, into womanhood, into adulthood. So she's got these very influential moments and these influential people that are surrounding her and influencing her, in my opinion, that are outside the box. Now, there's more. Bear with me. This is the ever-growing mind of Sarah Winchester here. Another teachings, and I know y'all have heard of this woman, another teachings and writing that Sarah herself studied later on in life was that of Helena Blavatsky.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Madame Blavatsky.
That is a whole egg to crack right there on its own.
Yes, it is. And I am going to try and sum it up in 2 sentences for you so you can understand, so our viewers and listeners can understand it. Madame Blavatsky, as she became known, was a Russian author who ended up co-founding the Theosophical Society in 1875. And she formed it with 2 other guys who were a Freemason and an occultist. They came together, they formed it. Now, according to theosophical writers, there is a deeper spiritual reality, and that direct contact with that reality can be established through intuition, meditation, revelation, or some other state transcending a normal human conscious. And Theosophy itself teaches that the purpose of human life is spiritual emancipation and claims that a human soul undergoes reincarnation through a process of karma. So that's another thing that she's studying later on in life. And the last one that she studies later on in life and follows is that of Rudolf Steiner. Now, Steiner was an Austrian occultist, an acclaimed clairvoyant. He was also among many other things, but he saw the universe as this vast living organism in which all things are likened to individually evolving units or cells that comprise a greater universal synergistic body that is ever building.
So she's influenced by people who believe that if you're talking that what you do in this life determines what becomes of you in the next. So you, again, like you said, based on karma. So you do good in this life, you're rewarded in the next. And that your whole point is to have your soul grow.
Correct.
Right?
Right. Pretty much. Yes, pretty much. If you want to wrap that up. Yes. To put that in a nice little package. Thank you, Shelley. Because I know that's a lot of information. And basically the reason I kept asking myself, why am I going to talk about this? Why am I going to bring this up? And we know she was smart. We know she was an intellect of her time. But it's the fact that she is surrounded by these type of family members, administrator, professors, citizens, teachings, writings, and this unique backdrop in a early development and beyond is going to play a crucial role in her choices later on in life. I mean, it's just like all of us, where we were raised and who we were influenced by plays a part in what we do today.
And you've got the Civil War going on too while she's in her formative years. And you have a lot of people who are trying to make contact with that other side, and so they're studying.
I'll get to that in just a second.
Yes, so they're very steeped in occultic writings and occultic thoughts and philosophies.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, this is Helena Blavatsky. By the way, she just had to show a picture of Madame Blavatsky.
Well, she kind of had a bit of a reputation for being a nut, even though her teachings aren't unfamiliar, because a lot of people believe in karma, but she kind of had a reputation as being a little bit out there. So if you want to go read about her, she's an interesting nut to crack. But her theories kind of ring true to today and what a lot of people's belief systems are based on. Do good in this life and you're rewarded in the next if you believe in reincarnation and soul growth. So if you believe that this is the end and that's it, then hell with her. But if you don't, if you believe there's something more, you probably have learned something from the teachings that she was actually, effusing at this time. So
we got Sarah at this point where she's studying all this. She's in womanhood and all this stuff. I'm going to deviate from her story real quick, and we're going to jump over to William Winchester. Now, Sarah and William, remember, they've known each other since childhood because at one point they lived down the road from each other, and the children played with each other basically. And even though their families had been in the area for about the same time,
is it just me or does he kind of look like Ryan?
Well, we'll just leave the picture up.
Okay. If you trim up that beard a little bit, he kind of looks like Ryan.
I say I don't have those amazing chops he's got going on right there.
Yeah. So William Wirt Winchester is this fella's name that's on the screen. He's born in 1837. He's named after U.S. Attorney General William Wirt, which apparently a lot of kids were in that year. A lot of guys were, is what I found out. It's kind of crazy. Now, William's parents were Oliver Fisher and Jane Hope.
Oh, he's a very severe looking man.
Or Oliver Fisher Winchester, sorry, and Jane Hope. Now, Oliver Winchester, I got to back up and tell you a little bit about this dude. This is William's father. His background is rough, like rough.
You can tell it by his face.
His father ends up dying shortly after he and his twin brother Samuel are born in 1810. And that forced him, his mother, and his siblings into poverty. And within a short time, Oliver's mother ended up remarrying. And this new husband, not wanting to raise some other man's children, turned Oliver and his brother Samuel out to work at a very young age, which back then, not uncommon, very disgusting. The problem was they didn't have much schooling. And so what they ended up picking up was like some carpentry skills which would end up getting them to Baltimore and it started to afford them a living, to where, I mean, they were even able to send money back to their family back home and siblings and all that stuff. But the fact is that the Winchesters had never been craftsmen, so their work wasn't the best. So Oliver and Samuel abandoned this craftsman stuff and they start up a men's clothing store called Winchester and Company that sold suits, shirts, hats, and a variety of accessories. And this is what proved to be rather successful. However, by 1845, they got 9 children between them, and they're like, the profits ain't there to support the 9 children that we got.
Yeah, the people only need so many shirts.
So we gonna have to do something. And so Oliver ends up coming up with this new way to cut and sew a men's shirt, and he patents this idea. And with this patent, he goes to New York to a clothier there named John Davies, and he asks for a loan. The loan is granted on the condition that a shop is opened back in New Haven. So they open up a shop back in New Haven, and this is when the Winchester and Davies shirt manufactory was open. And this is what was big time successful. Oliver took this, expanded on this, put mass production with the shirt making business, and it blew up. And by 1865, he was producing 1,200 shirts a day with 300 employees.
Damn.
So
very successful.
Very successful. And later on, he would end up being multiple states and having anywhere between 3,700 and 5,000 employees, I think was the runaround of what it was. So now at this time, while all this is going on, William Winchester, his son, Oliver's son, the one that Sarah married, is beginning to prepare for his entrance into this managerial role in the shirt company. Now, unlike his father, he graduated from grammar school. He went on to attend high school as well. He ended up at Yale College as well, studying a lot of the same curriculum that Sarah was studying by the same professors and by Sarah's relatives as well. Some of them were professors there too and administrators. And so they ended up bonding over this similar interest in Shakespeare and Sir Francis Bacon and all this kind of, there's that bacon again, making me hungry a little bit. And so it's kind of a no-brainer situation that these two were kind of like meant to be. They were going to end up getting married. You could just freaking tell. Not only that, but their families were very closely tied within the church. Both their fathers worked for the church. So they were very interlocked throughout their lives. Sorry. And also possibly it's possible, I didn't find documentation of this, that they also had a business relationship because Oliver Winchester had the shirt company. He had machines. Leonard Parting Company made metal pieces for the machines. So therefore they more than likely had a business relationship. So by the time that 1860 hits, the shirt company is estimated at a value of over $1 million.
Good money.
Yep. And this allows Oliver Winchester and Davies, the guy who got the loan from, to dabble in other investments, particularly the Volcanic Repeating Arms Company. So first, though, we're bringing Sarah and William Winchester together. So his father's reaching the height of his career and all this stuff, and William's starting to contemplate marriage. So there's no real documentation about how much they courted or anything like that, but you can almost guarantee that by the 1860s, they were keeping company, you know?
Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you besmirch her good name.
And Sarah and William are married in September of 1862, in the middle of the Civil War. Despite the Civil War going on, they are married.
Hey, sometimes in the most darkness is when you need that glimmer of light and that glimmer of hope.
Yep. And William, I will say William did not go fight in the Civil War. The only things that you could do to claim to get out of that was a medical reason, only son, or you had a job that was more important than soldiering at the time, which technically William could have claimed all three at that time. So he ended up deciding to stay home, helping run the business and taking care of, I guess, ailing parents. But he also had a sister and a nephew that died at this time that grief-stricken his mother. That's also why he made the choice to stay behind. Now, this to me is interesting because Sarah Winchester and William Winchester both living with the elder Winchesters when Jane is experiencing this just awful amount of grief because she's lost her daughter, she's lost her grandson, and Sarah's front and center for all of it. She's witness to every bit of it because she's there. She didn't have a job. She didn't go anywhere. She stayed in the house. So I think that that's kind of the first inkling of her having to face death in its face, so to speak. And she's seeing this kind of negative reaction to it, this woman who can't seem to get past her grief. So time goes on. In 1866, Sarah gives birth to her and William's first child, Annie Party Winchester. Now, Annie Party was born on June 15th. Shout out, that's my birthday.
Don't shout out too fast. You better see how long that kid hangs around.
I know. And from the get-go, Annie had trouble feeding and digesting. And there was no remedy that could help. She ended up being diagnosed with what was called marasmus, and that is basically the acute inability to absorb calories and make protein. And so on July 25th, which is only 40 days after she was born, unfortunately, Annie passed away. And that is what completely devastated Sarah. That was the first thing that she just went into this area where it's like she just couldn't get out of. It's actually documented somewhere that I came across, and I can't remember what article it was, but it is said that she did not do anything for almost an entire year. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't do anything. She didn't leave the house. She was just in mourning.
I mean, even as someone who does not have children, I can't imagine the pain of losing a child, especially that soon after having it around for that at least that limited amount of time.
Well, and I think I think the reason why it affected her at this time is you also got to think of the beliefs at this time. Now, one of the beliefs at this time is that basically God condemned infants to eternal damnation if they had not grown to be baptized. That was a belief that was going around.
And a lot of babies were baptized real quick, as soon as they got there.
Yeah. And so you see a lot of mothers who are trying to make this spiritual connection with their deceased infants. And so that is the first major phase of her own with death that she has to have. She loses her daughter in 40 days. And it's almost like right as she gets her footing, three years later, her father dies. Her father ends up succumbing to a lengthy paralysis from a spinal disease in 1869.
So she just takes one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah.
God.
Now, while that's happening, Sarah is experiencing all this death and dealing with all that. Oliver's over here. Oliver Winchester, William Winchester's his father, is over here just raking in this cash, from the shirt company or whatnot. And he notices that with the Volcanic Repeating Arms Company, as I said earlier, it was going bankrupt. This one particular gun that Smith & Wesson was trying to sell wasn't selling, and it was going bankrupt. So he walks in and he goes, you know what? Hey, I'll purchase your machinery, your backlog, and your patent. And he does. And he ends up calling that the New Haven Arms Company. And Oliver took one of his mechanics from a shirt company. His name is Benjamin Henry. And he turns out to be a rather remarkable gunsmith. And he ends up taking this patent of this revolver, translating it over to a rifle. And thus the Henry repeating rifle is born. Now, this is not the exact model, but this kind of give you an idea. Basically, all it is that you didn't have to reload to shoot. You could continue shooting without reloading. That's what he contributed to it. Go ahead, Ryan.
And that's so revolutionary at the time because, reloading those weapons was so slow in order to do what you had to do. So something that you could just essentially just load a couple bullets in and get what you need to get done was mind blowing to them at the time.
Yeah. So during all of this, Oliver becomes obsessed with trying to get these purchase orders in. So he's like, I know the ticket. The ticket is to sell it to the government. He's like, not only am I going to sell it to my government, I'm going to sell it to this country's government and this country's government and this country's government. So he starts taking all these little tours around and doing all this shit to try and promote this rifle. And Benjamin Henry's back there like, dude, you got to slow down. We can't keep up. Well, that ends up deteriorating their relationship. So while Oliver Winchester is over in England, he lands in a country and he gets a telegram from his son and says, yo, dude, dad, you need to get your butt home. Benjamin Henry is trying to take over your company and rename it the Henry Repeating Arms Company.
That dirty dog.
What?
And Oliver goes, hold on 1 second. Let me come home. And he sits there and on his way home, I'm sure he's like, the lifeblood of a corporation or a company is the money. and I got all of it. So when he gets home, he pulls every cent that he has out of the New Haven's Arm Company. He goes down to the Connecticut state legislature and he puts together paperwork to form the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. And he bides his time for about a year. And at that point, New Haven's Arm Company is fledgling and dying out. And he walks over and he knows that they have investors and stuff like that. So he says, hey, I know you don't want to lose your investments. I'll buy this company back and pay off all your debts. And they agree to it and oust Henry, and Winchester gets his New Haven Arm Company back. And I find that fucking hilarious. Because that is, I know, Shelley phrase, so we'll keep going.
Well, and you can't. The guy tried to steal his company right out from underneath him while he was abroad and had no way of knowing anything. So
I'm like, I'm just gonna say, like, pure definition of fuck around and find out. I mean, seriously, it is. So with all of this happening, I mean, the Winchester Repeating Arms Company is growing. William decides, hey, I'm going to sell my half of the shirt company over to the son of the other guy that started this, and I'll come over to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company and be the secretary there, because his father needed people that he could trust. And Oliver ended up hiring Nelson King, who took what Henry had made and made another patent called the Yellow Boy, and that's where things exploded. And sales started like piling in, and he could not get a government contract to take during the war. And so this gun, because it was so cheap at the time, it started to fall into the hands of pioneers at the time. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, like, is this? I believe this is the gun that they manufactured, and the government looked at it. They really wanted to buy it to use in the Civil War, but it rusted in the rain, so they were not able to use it in the field. So they had to find other means and ways of selling it to people.
Correct. Yes. And so it ends up getting to the hands of pioneers. It is started to be, I guess, advertised. Look, I'm going to go down this road real quick. It's going to get kind of dark and disturbing a little bit for a second. This is history. This is what it was. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it started to be promoted as the gun to go west with, in advertisements that read, quote, for Indian bear or buffalo hunting, it is unrivaled, end quote. Obviously, that's disgusting. History being what it is, the U.S. policy at the time was attempt to eliminate the nomadic lifestyle of indigenous people and sequester them onto reservations. And the huge appeal to accomplish that was the Winchester rifle, because its ability to continue firing without having to reload. So you can only imagine the horrors that brought to the indigenous people. And not only that, but you had people who were like Annie Oakley and Teddy Roosevelt and Buffalo Bill, and like all of them, like, here's an advertisement that has Annie Oakley in it. You know, they started touting this rifle, that this is the rifle to do. So eventually this rifle became known as the gun that won the West. But I think that I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think that gets whitewashed a bit in history. I don't think that people just say, it's what helped win the West, but they don't understand exactly what that means. And that was the disbursement and slaughtering of the indigenous people so that people could claim the land. I mean, that's what it came known to. So I also like to point that out, because where the house sits, the Winchester Mystery House, one of the last known Indian wars took place in and around that area. So what's to say that the soil or the land is not soaked with blood that could be contributing? But we can touch on that. We can touch on that a little bit. So we're getting to the point where Sarah's about to take over this company. Now, the Winchester Repeating Arms Company exploded over the next decade between 1870 and 1880. And by 1880, it is at a net worth of over $3 million for this company.
Wow.
And just profits abound at this point for the family.
And that's in then money.
That's in then money.
Yeah.
However, by the time we reach 1880, we reach the worst year in Sarah's life. In May of 1880, Sarah loses her mother. In December of 1880, Sarah loses her much admired and adored father-in-law, Oliver Winchester. He dies at the end of 1880. Now, with his death, William Winchester, being the sole heir, takes control and ownership of the estate and the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, which leaves him with a very large net worth. However, the worst of the deaths that she experienced in this time comes just 3 months later after she loses her father-in-law, when her husband dies in March of 1881. And he ended up succumbing to tuberculosis. Now, with William's death, since he was the sole heir and inherited all of it, Sarah is his wife. And at the age of 40, after losing her entire support system, she inherits everything that William inherited.
A very wealthy lady.
She amassed a fortune of $20 million
in then money
in 1881. For those who can do quick math, congratulations. You know the answer already. For those who cannot, who are like me, I've already figured it up for you. That is roughly just the 20 million alone in that time in 1881. And today's money would be $566,880,392.16.
So she ain't wanting for nothing ever.
I'm gonna get that 16 cents in there, damn it. But not only that, but the amount of stock she got from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company that she inherited from William's death paid her roughly $1,000 a day in then money. Again, quick math, because I've already figured it up for you. That's roughly about $28,344.02 per day in today's money.
I can live on $28,000 a day.
Ain't
easily
lying.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to give it a shot anyway. See if I can make ends meet.
You ain't flipping lying. So she immediately becomes one of the wealthiest women of her time on the planet of her time. So I will point out that a portion of his estate, this is kind of interesting, a portion of William's estate when he died was left for additional land to Yale College in recognition of his love of astronomy and celestial mysteries that also paired very well that the observatory that the parties gave to Yale College. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Just going to throw that little fact in there for you real quick.
They have to have some kind of spiritual connection because, usually you don't pick someone who is 100% opposite of you that you have nothing in common with. And that did kind of always seem to be kind of something they had in common was their ethereal beliefs, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we think the grief is over. The grief is not over. Sarah has lost her entire support system. She's trying to figure out what the hell she's wanting to do. She does not want to take a position at the company. She does not want to work for the company. She is just trying to figure out life at this point without her family now. And 3 years later, after William's death, she loses one of her sisters to cancer in 1884. So it's just like this woman, by the time she's 45 at this point, this woman has lost an entire family.
And just one after another, just bam, 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 bam. And she just has no time. Like, just when she seems to get better is when it happens again.
Yeah. So I kind of like to point out if there's ever a time that when Sarah may have sought spiritual guidance, probably would have been this time. Between the year 1880 and 1884. I mean, she loses all these people. Now, according to her friend and author, he's an author, but he's also her friend, Ralph Rambo, he says that Sarah embarks on a 3-year tour between 1881 and 1884. So after her husband dies and around the time their sister dies. He's also the one that points out and corroborates that Sarah was a theosophist, which was Helena Blavatsky or Madame Blavatsky. And I did find where in 1886, a New Haven Register has her listed as removed to Europe. So there's a little bit of corroboration there with that. Where she went is still a mystery. It is said that she traveled around the world, hitting all these different, Asia, Europe, all this stuff to get or in search of answers to the occult or to occult related topics and to meet with multiple psychics around the world. I'm going to say I could not find any documentation to support that. I will go ahead and put that out there.
That's speculation as to what she did, but we do know she did leave the country, and it was allegedly for some kind of spiritual growth and spiritual journey.
Yes. Now, in this alleged meeting with different psychics, One of the ones she is said to meet with was that a Boston medium, a very well-known, famous Boston medium, Adam Coons or Adam Combs. I found his name 2 different spelling variations. So it's either Coons, Coons, or Combs, like you comb your hair. And she's wanting to make a connection with her husband. She thinks at this point she might be cursed. She's looking for a direction in her life where she should take it. So she meets with him. And supposedly in this meeting is when she is told that, in fact, yes, you are cursed by the Winchester fortune due to the amount of people that are slain by the Winchester rifle. And the angry spirits are urging you to move to California and build a house. And you have to continually build, for if you don't, the curse is going to get you too. Now, again, I'm going to add in here, I did not find any documentation on any of that. So that is speculation. I will say that.
But that is probably the most well-known theory as to why she did it, even though there isn't anything to support it. And there's nothing, because I thought at some point she had actually told someone that she had been told that she had to keep building on a house.
She does later on.
Okay.
Like that does come up.
I wasn't trying to jump your story.
No, you're fine. I know we're getting into the point where she's like about to buy the house. All the shit's going to go down. You know, it's about to rapidly start evolving through here. I mean, we don't really have much more. There's not a lot on Sarah Winchester. We don't really have a whole lot more of her story, which I think is going to be great, because this episode to me is going to end in a wonderful discussion, I'm sure.
So what's so odd is, why California of all places? I mean, was it just like, hey, here's a spot on the map, move there? I can
actually give you some sort of idea as to why. But let me get through this little portion right now, and I think that's actually next on why. But yes, there is a little bit of an explanation as to why California. So even though we don't have the documentation, we can look at, again, what is happening in the time that it is happening. And we know at this time, this is 1884-ish, spiritualism has exploded in America. Now, initially, we covered spiritualism back in episode 16 with the White House hauntings. If you haven't watched that, that's a wonderful one too. Basically, brief summary, it's the belief that you can commune with the dead, and it was basically exploded with the Fox sisters in Hydesville, New York, who claimed they could speak to one of the murder victims in their house through a series of raps and knocks. And it exploded because of Civil War. These women had no idea what happened to their sons, brothers, fathers, stuff like that.
And they were seeking to connect and find out what happened to, again, their family members who they never even got a letter. You know, they just never saw them again. They didn't know what happened. And it was an effort. It was an effort to find closure.
And the reason why I say, even though there's no documentation, the speculation and the evidence that Sarah could have potentially reached out to for spiritual guidance at this time, it's pretty prevalent, in my opinion, because spiritualism, their target audience were grieving women and grieving widows in the upper class societal positions who had money,
who could afford to pay them to entertain.
And so I'm going to stop here and say, I'm going to throw this out there. This is part of my theory. You cannot tell me, just because there's not proof of it, that she at some point did not reach out, or more than likely reach out to use spiritualism as a coping tool for her grief. She is the prime target audience.
And again, there are lots of people still to this day who reach out to psychics, mediums. Don't get me started on my theory about them. To find some sort of closure. But again, that was the big thing to do then, especially if you were wealthy enough to pay for their services.
Yeah. And it
wasn't done out of the goodness of their heart, because I think if you're legit, you'll do it out of the goodness of your heart. Why the hell you charge me $75? Tell me my future. I can tell you what my future is. I'm gonna be out $75. So
now we get to the point of, more than likely, I ain't gonna lie, why everybody is here watching this episode. Sarah heads to California. Part of the reason why, Ryan, I'll summarize this for you. Part of the reason why she ends up going to California, there's different arrival times for her. I pinpointed it down to around 1885, 1886. She has 2 cousins out there.
Okay.
On the party side. Both of them at one point were mayor of Oakland, and I believe both of them. No, one was a Republican politician, and the other one was a governor of California. One of them, Enoch H. Party, he was a prominent doctor, politician, as well as a very prominent occultist, too. So he ends up going out there, or she ends up going out there, I think, because she has some familial ties, as well as her brother-in-law ends up accepting a job at Mills College out there. And so he ends up going out there as well, which is going to bring one of her sisters with him. So she grabs her other sister, and all these three sisters head out and head out to California.
Do you think maybe it is also to put as much distance between her and New Haven as possible to kind of heal?
Absolutely. That is said over and over and over again, that she wanted as much distance because California was so far away from the distraught and grief that she'd experienced in her New Haven life that she wanted to start anew. In California, where Silicon Valley is now, was a lot of ranches and orchards and all that shit back in the day, and it was very appealing to her. So she heads out that way. Now, legend of the story goes that she was traveling down this sparsely populated, dusty road, and the carriage came to this spot in the road, and she had this stirring feeling that she just had to be there, and that she spotted an unremarkable, I'm going to read it actually, an unremarkable, almost finished 5-bedroom wooden farmhouse being built by Dr. Augustine Caldwell. It sat on a knoll of 45 sunny acres of land alongside the road. A local recalled that the doctor's isolated college originally sat, quote, in an island of tall trees rising above the level of a mile of orchards. The land wasn't uninhabited. The doctor had almost completed the house, and none of it was for sale. Sarah had a fortune and the means to purchase land anywhere in the valley. This particular acreage had nothing especially practical about it. In fact, it was quite impractical. She declared to herself that this was the place. And I'm going to tell you right now that the legend is bullshit. Just going to throw that out there. Because the agent that is over the Winchester Repeating Arms Company actually has documentation that he was with her when he lived out there as well in this valley, and he knew of a ranch for sale, and he took her by there. And it was a 45-acre ranch with an 8-room farmhouse, almost smack dab in the middle of it, and it was owned by John Hamm. And she ended up purchasing this property from Hamm in 1886 for $12,570.
And that was a fortune back then.
Or about $386,000 in today's money.
Yeah. But that
included that included the house and the acreage.
But if you think about it, 45 acres, she again got to isolate. No neighbors within, that's not really walking distance. I mean, you got to get on your, in your carriage and trot on over to the neighbor's house. You better not run out of sugar because you're going to have to get on your horse and go find some. So, yeah, that's, it's interesting because, again, being that she was alone, she seemed to like to be alone, but then she actually became alone with the deaths of all of her immediate family. And then she chooses a spot where she could be alone. She doesn't pick a downtown area where she could be part of the social life and the hub and the comings and goings of daily life. She picks a spot where she can be alone.
Mm-hmm. And this is what you're looking at is the actual original farmhouse that she purchased. This is from the history of San Jose, California. This is the actual farmhouse and the actual building that she purchased from John Hamm. This is what it looked like when she purchased it.
And it's a beautiful little house.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. Breathtaking. So and she ended up calling it Yanadavia, which means house on flat land. House on a plain is what it means, but house on flat land. And in addition to this, she also bought additional property in 1888, 140 acres, which is now downtown Los Altos, California, to use as a ranch. She also bought another farmhouse, which is known as the Winchester Merriman House, for her sister and her brother-in-law. And she also maintained a houseboat at this time. And the rumor was the houseboat was nicknamed Sarah's Ark because she had a fear of a second great flood of biblical proportions. And so therefore she wanted to have a way to escape.
Wanted to be prepared.
It's easily explained.
She's a definition.
It's easily explained everybody of her societal position had yachts or houseboats back then. So I think it's just
Well,
one
they
of
were
those
like
things
the
that got away.
definition of superstitious.
Yeah. So on to the good part. Construction begins. Construction begins on this beautiful original house. And many say that actually, first off, she hires anywhere between 16 to 20 carpenters at 3 times the going rate for continual construction 24/7, 365 without ceasing. That is what is alleged to have happened. She was in charge of all the plans. She did not have an architect, nothing. Didn't have this building master. She didn't work off
Remember,
blueprints.
she was smart in mathematics and all of this. I mean,
Yep.
the fact that she could compose music means that she had some kind of mathematical abilities. Because if you've ever taken a music theory class, and child, that is a hard class. And so she wasn't dumb. And so it makes sense to me that she goes, no, I can do this. I can draw this up. I can figure out the dimensions. So when they go, oh, she designed the plans. This girl was smart.
She was very, very smart. A lot of people say that the house ended up swelling to 26 rooms within the first 6 months.
And ambitious.
And ambitious. So part of the lore legend is that she would go to her little seance room and she would conduct these seances every night at midnight to listen to the spirits on how to construct the house. She did this.
Would she do this alone?
She did this through the use of mediums. She would either bring it to the house, and later on, when the Ouija board was invented, I guess you could say, she would use the Ouija board to be able to do it. And she would actually ring the bell in the bell tower at midnight to draw the spirits in. She would ring it again at 2 a.m. to release the spirits after the communication was done. And it's alleged that that's the reason why there's a lot of like nonsensical building construction and layout of this house that led to a lot of haphazard building and all of that stuff. I mean, you've got so some of the things that were being built, you've got a staircase that was 44 steps and only ascended 1 level, and they end up calling it the switchback stairs. I could have swore I had a second picture of it, but I think my pictures have been disappearing. But anyways, if I come across a second picture, I'll throw the second picture up. So anyways, she had so this is one you can see on the right-hand side is where it starts. It snakes its way up and then actually loops back around and makes 1, 2, 3, 4 more turns before it ends on the second floor. It's kind of interesting. I did find out though that Sarah was diagnosed with arthritis later on in life. And she could only lift one of her legs just barely a couple of inches.
Oh.
So that could be an explanation for that. However, there are some things in this house you can't explain. Like having to go down a staircase to go up a staircase and then another staircase just to the left of it. And let me take the banner off real quick so you can kind of get the idea that you are standing at the top of a staircase looking at another staircase and then there's a staircase to your left. What the fuck? I mean... You got
and they said that her seance room had 1 way in and 3 ways out. Just weird shit like that. Like I don't know how it works.
Did. It had 1 way in and it had 3 exits.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you have 1 way in and then 3 ways out?
Can't
you just go back out the way you came in?
I will actually show you how that works.
The door only goes 1 way?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, you have these winding staircases. You have these staircases that lead to nowhere. Literally, they stop at the ceiling. You have doors that open to walls. You have, this is how she does it with her seance room, because I'm about to show you, cabinet doors that lead to rooms. That's her seance room. That's one of the exits. You supposedly you can't get in from that way. You can only exit from that way. And that's so that she could slip out with nobody knowing that she was there. You also have doors that go nowhere or lead to 18-foot drop, 10 to 18-foot drops.
And that's probably one of the most well-known things about that house is that you have to be cautious whenever you open up certain doors, especially that one. And I believe you can go to that house and you can open up that door and you can stand there. I believe they put up a piece of plexiglass or something so you don't fall through.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that the door opens up and you've got a drop that could injure you very badly if you step out it wrong.
Another one that I found, or that was sent to me, by the way, I woke up to a slew of photos from Kendall Posey. Kendall, thank you so much if you're watching. I didn't ask for them. She just sent them to me, and I was like, yo, can I use some of these? She's like, sure, go for it. So I appreciate that, Kendall. This is one that she took. You can see kind of towards the middle of the screen, there's 2 double doors there that just open to nowhere. There are, again, doors that open to an 8-foot drop into the kitchen below. You have exterior windows that open to walls or open to interior rooms. And there's even something called a witch's cap, which is very interesting. And I just don't really like the feel of this room, even though it's on screen.
And you know what? I'm digging it. I'm like, I like that. I like the windows that kind of are bent, and I'm kind of liking that room.
At one point, the house reached 7 stories tall. Now, this is the house prior. It has to be prior to 1906. So she has probably been constructing on this thing now for over 15 years. So we go from this little farmhouse to now we're 15 years later and we're to this.
It's amazing. It's like its own little city.
Mm-hmm. You have 2 basements in this house. You have large size doors next to child size doors with no children in the house. You have rooms that don't have a floor. You have skylights in the middle of the floor. And this is what really gets me, oversized linen closets with the smallest cabinet ever. It's only a 1/2 inch deep. And then probably my favorite room of all is the grand ballroom.
That's beautiful.
The grand ballroom has parquet floors, stained glass windows that are inscribed with Shakespearean quotes. And now it was alleged at first that those were designed by Tiffany and Company, but I actually found an article on their website that dispels that, and that these were actually made by another. He was a coal magnate, like he ran a coal industry, I guess, or something. But anyways, this grand ballroom is actually built almost entirely without the use of nails. I find that interesting as hell. It's all like woodworked together and stuff. It's built almost entirely without the use of nails. And at this time when this was built, it cost $9,000 to build this one room, when a house could have been built for about $1,500 back then.
Wow.
So this one room costs like God knows how many times more than an actual house.
I wonder why it was suddenly without the use of nails.
Maybe they thought the iron held something.
Well,
and
I contribute it back to maybe the craftsmanship of her father. Maybe she wanted to honor him in a way somehow. And that he was a woodworker. He was a joiner. So he joined wood together, by trade. So maybe he wanted
dowels or beveling it or making it so that it interlocks. Yeah.
She also had this is the most expensive glass in the entire place. This window alone cost $1,500.
Jesus Christ.
So, well, I guess to Sarah, that means she had to save for a day and a half to get it. But these are the Shakespearean windows that flank in the ballroom. They end up flanking. You can kind of see them there's that fireplace on the far right in the middle. You can see them to the left and the right of that. But these are those windows that flank it, and they're inscribed with Shakespearean quotes. So we see her love for Shakespeare appear in the house.
And it shouldn't be overlooked that it's, you can see why she likes Shakespeare, because in most of Shakespeare's works, there is a ghost or a spirit that is mentioned. Almost all of Shakespeare's work have a spirit. Even the chorus sometimes operates as the spiritual bridge to, tell you what the characters are thinking or whatever. And so that's interesting. I can see how she would like it, being that Shakespeare was a bit of a spiritualist himself.
So not only all that, but her house was a technological wonder for its time. She was one of the, at her death in 1922, only 1% of houses had indoor plumbing. She had indoor plumbing throughout all this. She had toilets, flushable toilets. She had a shower. That's her shower. She had a tub. She had faucets. She had garden hoses, which was a new invention of the time. She had forced heat throughout the house. A lot of people argue that it was the first house ever to use wool insulation. She had 3 elevators in it. 1 ran off electricity, 2 ran off of hydraulic lifts. And she had this thing called an annunciator in the servants' call room, which had this master grand board. That's it right there. That she could then push a button to where she was at. These are one of the buttons. And a card would drop down, and that bell would ring up top, and it would alert the staff to where she was in the house, and they would go and answer the call.
That's pretty cool.
Imagine trying to get to where the hell she's at, though, and having to go through the freaking labyrinth to get to where Sarah's hanging out.
Yeah. So
you're going to go down the staircase to the right, to the left, back to the right, up and down these 2 staircases, around the bend.
Go through the ferry door and then jump through the window on the left, not the one on the right, because the one on the right takes you to the roof. You have to go to the one on the left.
So it also had its own water and electric supply, as well as a sewage drainage system. And a lot of the rooms were lit by carbide gas lights, which basically ran on the on-site gas manufacturing plant. And she would be able to press a button on the wall, and it would strike a light in the gas light and light the room up for her. So a precursor to electricity, if you will. All in all, by the time the construction was done, this woman had taken this simple 8-room farmhouse, and she had hold on, somebody Melissa just said, I'll see you in an hour when you're going to find her. Exactly. She's on the other end of the house. I'll see you in an hour, girl. So all in all, she had taken this very simple 8-room farmhouse and turned it into, voila, what you see before you.
Crazy. Wow.
It's massive.
This house is now 24,000 square feet, which is half the size of a football field without the end zones. She had 10,000 windows, which is 1.5 times the amount of the Empire State Building. She had 2,000 doors, which is enough to cover the rooms at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in Maryland. She had 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways, 47 fireplaces, but only 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens. And all of this was built at a price tag of $5 million by 1923 standards, or $71 million today.
Damn.
Yeah. So during all this time the construction is going on, I am going to tell you a couple of few noteworthy items that I feel is important. A lot of people think she lived there alone. She did not. For 14 years, from 1890 to 1903, about 1904, she had her favorite niece, Isabel Merriman, I think was her name. She went by Daisy. She lived with her. And you can see some of the stuff. I mean, this was her absolute favorite niece. She's got windows in the house that have daisies in them, and this is in honor of Daisy. She's got daisies on the iron gates. She's got daisies everywhere throughout the house. Now, I will tell you, I'll go ahead and say, I could not find anything from Daisy herself that dispelled any rumors or talk of the paranormal in Sarah Winchester. She did not say anything negative about it. She did not say, nope, didn't happen. Yes, it did happen. She didn't deny it, but she didn't.
Daisy just didn't talk about
either. She just didn't talk about it.
Right?
Yeah. Now, at this time, there were also 2 children that lived when all the construction was going. There were also 2 children that lived on the grounds. They were the sons of a foreman. His name was John Henson. And the sons' name were Theodore and Carl Henson. This is actually the 2 of them on the grounds at the house. Now, after Mrs. Winchester died, for probably about 50 years after, Ted Henson, or Theodore Henson, he got a letter, an inquiring letter, wanting to know about the beliefs, the way she acted, and responded to things of Mrs. Winchester. This lady wanted to know and was asking Ted Henson. He is quoted as saying,
I'm sorry, how many years?
This is, I think this was written in 1973, I think. So you're talking 50 years.
50 years after Sarah Winchester's death, which would have made him somewhere around the age of 62, 63.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So he even goes on to say, it is noted that Mrs. Winchester, while alive, made no denial to the fantastic published stories, nor did her relatives after her death. And he's the one, he did not answer anything to the question, because he said her story has been, he's like, I'm not going to hold an interview about it. I'm not going to discuss it because her story has been discussed enough. And any chance to refute what has been said is going to be futile.
Right. Because the legend and the stories have kind of taken on a life of their own. Correct.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, during all this construction in 1906, when I say that the house reached a peak of 7 stories prior to 1906, is because we do have to remember, and you have to take into account, if you're going to truly investigate this story, you have to tell everybody that there was a 1906 earthquake in this area that wiped out 80% of the city. And that is apparent at the house. The house sustained damage from this. The 7-story tower collapsed in on itself. The front of the house took massive damage. Sarah Winchester herself was said to be trapped in this room right here, which is the Daisy room, for hours. You can actually still see the crowbar markings on the door to get her out. So we do have to remember that there was a earthquake in this area at this time. And I think that that's very important to note about why some of the quirks and turns of some of the house is the way that it is. You have stairs that lead nowhere, doors that lead nowhere. It could have been happened. She didn't work off blueprints. She didn't work off plans. Could have been happened. It got destroyed in the earthquake. And she said, fuck it. Just put up a wall. Fuck it. Just put in a floor, So, I mean, it's true. We do have to think of that. That's going to play a factor.
She sounds like my kind of architect. Whatever. I don't care.
So one of the things that I love about in all this construction of this, she had some nosy neighbors, like some big time nosy neighbors. So she told her like gardeners and shit. She was like, you know what? Just put a row of hedges all the way around the house. I don't need anybody peering in here. I don't give a shit. So they did. And that's when the rumors started. And it came out in a news article stating that basically she had violated the neighborly, disarmingly social code among California ranchers, and that she was reclusive. She was withdrawn from society, and she was an enigma of silence.
She's like, and I don't gotta be your friend.
Let that lady be.
And I will say that this is the article where the words, "The sound of hammers never hushed." This is the first time it ever appears, ever, is in 1895. So a lot of people have actually said that after the earthquake, the construction did cease for a period of 6 years. There was nothing happening at the house for 6 years. So I think that's another part of it that we can kind of dispel, or say may not be entirely true. And this is also the one where he says it's rumored that if Miss Winchester ceases construction, it's, until she has to keep the belief that when the house is entirely finished, she'll die. That was published in this article as well. Excuse me. One thing I want to add, that out of all these articles, I read about 40 to 50 articles, probably over 50 at this point, a couple of chapters for some books and a biography over Sarah herself. I've been knee deep in research for Sarah over the last 3 weeks. I've been talking y'all's ear off about it for the last 3 weeks. I'm sure you're all like, yes, thank God tonight's the episode. One thing I found that is never, never, never discussed, and anybody who takes the skeptical standpoint on this story, is that there is an article that is published that is purportedly a direct statement from Sarah herself that says Sarah had told the, quote, few friends who persisted in visiting her despite their brusque reception that she received a message from the spirit world warning her that all would be well so long as the sound of hammers did not cease in the house or on the grounds. And I'm going to go ahead and say that for you not to bring that up and for not to investigate that claim is doing a disservice to the story, because I think it adds a lot to this story. Now, I found only that article, or that little newspaper article that was supposedly a direct statement from Sarah herself. I didn't find anything else other than that.
I don't know if I believe that, because she was so reclusive and she was so introverted. She's not talking to the paper. That's the last thing she wants to do.
Sure.
So I don't think she ever said that.
No,
Me personally.
I mean,
but okay. So what if it was someone speaking on her behalf and saying,
that could
Sarah
very well
said
be.
to me that this is it, and so they quoted it as Sarah, because she's saying Sarah said. I'm quoting Sarah. So they put it in Sarah, quotation marks, but Sarah Winchester says, and being on how trusted that friend, because I mean, really, you go tell my business to the paper. I don't really think you're probably my friend. Seems like you're more an informant, and I got to talk to some government officials somewhere. But yeah, so depending on how close the friend was, that could be legitimate. Then it also could be hey, I got a story to tell you. You want to put my name in the paper? The 15-minute of fame kind of thing. So,
yeah. So, coming to the end of her story, her life, she ends up passing away September 5th of 1922 at 10:45 p.m. from heart failure in her bed, peacefully in her sleep. Construction immediately ceases. And when I say cease, there are still nails that are halfway driven into the wall, because they just dropped their hammers and finished stopping. Now, for them to say that, and there are nails that are hanging out of the wall halfway still, maybe that kind of lends a little credence that construction was around the clock, because it's 10:45 at night. You know?
Well, and there were probably very specific, and I don't know this, I'm speculating, probably that there were instructions that at the time of my passing, the hammers, just as I go silent, so will the hammers.
Yeah.
You can stop when I pass. And there was probably somebody there when she passed who goes, oh my God, you guys, okay, she's died. Let's have quiet for the dead. Don't stop the noise.
And after her death, her house is immediately given to Daisy, her favorite niece.
Daisy.
Who then auctions off all the contents inside and the house itself. And then a local investor comes in and he buys that house for $135,000 in 1922.
Wait, so Daisy just immediately, the favorite niece, the second she gets it's like, screw this crap, and sells it all off.
She auctioned off anything that was not monetary.
Now, even though she never said anything about paranormal claims, that doesn't mean that something didn't happen that spooked her. So she was like, I ain't staying in that house. You can have it.
Very true. It makes you wonder why she did it the way she did.
Sounds like a vulture looking for cash to me.
Could be, but Ryan's right. What if something happened? What if
she didn't have any problem
something?
living there while Sarah was alive?
Because Sarah was alive.
While she was alive, yes.
Yeah. But you gotta, okay, so you stay in a place for a certain amount of time, you get used to whatever may or may not be going on in there. The fact that she never said one way or another leads me to think that Daisy was a bit skeptical. But I mean, she's living with this rich aunt, living probably off the rich aunt, and it's like the rich aunt's gone, let's sell the shit and get out of town. Really? How awful are you?
Hang on, though. She might not even be that skeptical, because there are a lot of people who have an experience. They don't fucking talk about it. They're like, nope, don't want to talk about it. Don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, a lot of them don't stay either where they are with their wealthy aunt and sponge off of them.
Well, we don't know when it happened.
I don't
if
like
it did
Daisy.
happen.
I don't like Daisy. I don't like her.
Well, so it ends up getting sold at auction to this local investor, who then turns around and leases it out to John and Mamie Brown. And 5 months after Sarah has passed, the house is open for tourists. And it's been opened ever since for the last 100 years. And to date, it's had over, I think it said like 12 million tourists through its doors or something along that lines. But it has been
not been, and it's on my bucket list.
Mine too. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to talk about a couple of things that were found after Sarah died and my conclusion and theory on this. And then we can start discussing this little matter. So after Sarah passed, some of the things that are starting to be discovered of the house, because the only ones allowed in were the workers and Daisy. That was basically about it. One of the first things that is discovered is that there is a hinged wall inside the grand ballroom. And it is that wall to the very far right where it looks like a door. Mm-hmm. That is the wall that is hinged. Behind this hinged wall is a wooden door Behind the wooden door is a steel door. Behind the steel door is a safe, and inside that safe is another safe. And when they finally get that safe inside the safe open, inside are 2 bundles of human hair and funeral notices for her husband and her daughter. Now, I do know that hair work and saving the locks of hair was a traditional mourning practice of that time. However, we also know as paranormal investigators what the hell can happen.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, people save people's hair. Whenever your child gets their first haircut, that first little snip, you put a little bow around it. With a boy or girl, you put a little tie around it, and you save that little lock of hair in the baby book.
Yeah, but that's different than cutting it off of a dead corpse. I don't mean to sound morbid, but
I don't know if my mama saved my hair. That's an interesting question. I have to ask her.
Well,
I have my son's first lock of hair from his first haircut. It's in a picture frame. It says my first haircut and got a little picture. And a lot of times too, sometimes if a child passed and I have one of these dolls, this is another reason I don't like dolls, where if a child passed and they would cut some of the hair and they would sew the hair onto a doll with their face on it, and that would be their little poppet.
So fucking creepy. I don't like that.
I have a human hair rag doll that's handmade. I actually have 2 of them.
I don't. No, not for me.
They're locked up in that toy box. Remember those things I say sometimes I don't let them out? They ain't coming out. So saving of hair it's not an uncommon practice today, and it definitely wasn't uncommon then.
But her being involved in some of the stuff that she was involved in.
But there's I mean, usually the keeping of human hair for something that is involved to be ritualistic is usually associated with something that she was not known to have been in, which is some sort of voodoo or witchcraft. That's not something that's associated with Sarah Winchester. And the fact that she cared about these people so much, I don't think that she would have used it for any ill intent. She protected it so well to keep it safe. A safe inside a safe.
Well, not necessarily herself being involved in it, but she's always looking for answers. She's always on that mystical journey, that spiritual journey, searching for whatever may be out there. Who's to say she didn't?
But let's. I mean, she's involved in enough kooky enough shit. Let's go with what we know. The kooky she's involved in. Let's not speculate on the kooky
we know,
she could be.
But the fact that that was found in a safe, I don't know.
Right. I'm telling you, as a parent, you protect the things of your children, especially children that you've lost, and you keep things and you keep them safe. And I think that's all she did that was her memento and her remembrance. And I think she wanted nothing more because again, it was behind a wall, behind a steel door, wooden door, a steel door, and then a safe within a safe. This is something she never wanted anybody to have access to. That was the last bit of her personal connection to the 2 people that she loved the most in this world. And my God, nothing was going to harm it. And even if that house burnt down, that was going to remain.
But yeah, what I'm saying though is like maybe for a means of contact, she could have used something that was from them in order to, you and your popcorn. She could have used something that was from them in order to establish that connection to make contact.
The fact that it was hidden away so well, I don't think that she would have used that at all. I think that was something that was more sacred to her. Yeah. And I would think that, she just, would have asked for contact. Now, the infant, I don't know how you would do that because you wouldn't assume that the infant could speak because the infant was an infant. Now, the husband, maybe, but I think that she probably had enough other tokens that she could use for him. The child, she even could have had one of the child's dresses or something, but that lock of hair was something personal that was a part of them. And I don't think she would have bastardized that in any way, just the way that she kept it and kept it safe, that I don't think she would have used that in the slightest. I'm a mom. I'm telling you, there's some things you just leave alone. You put up and you keep them safe.
Is I'm inclined to agree with you on that. However,
then what the hell are we arguing about?
Well, hold on. I'm saying, I got to finish. It's like, I'm inclined to agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is like, we don't know, depends on how deep and how intense that desire was to make contact was. I don't know. Well, but I say I'm more inclined to agree with you, but we don't.
She had her own seance room. So obviously that intent to make contact was extremely deep. Mm-hmm. But again, I think there were other things to use. I think the way she protected it, I don't think that would have been something she would have used. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Not the part I thought y'all would have gotten into it on. But that was a delicious snack. That was a delicious snack.
Did we give you time to get a sip of soda pop?
Yes,
we
you
made
did,
you talk
actually.
for a long time, so
that's okay. I've just got a very little bit left to wrap up, and then we're gonna discuss. I guarantee you. So, I found on 2 separate occasions. I did not find any other documentation to back this up. On 2 separate occasions, it is said that souvenirs or mementos would have been taken on some of the earliest tours, and later on, they would be received back with a note that would say, "Ever since I took this, I've had terrible luck. Please take this back."
Mm-hmm.
Didn't find any.
Here we go again with people taking things that don't belong to them.
Do not take things from haunted locations. Cannot emphasize that enough. Ever. Don't.
Absolutely.
You know what? If they got a
Absolutely.
gift shop, go to the gift shop and buy something. That is fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
But you just take something I mean, if you came to my house and just take something, why are you stealing? And if that's a spirit and they consider it's theirs, guess what? The spirit's going to think you're stealing from it. Go to the gift shop, purchase the pair of socks or a little pencils. I went to the men's shop. Don't take something. It's not yours.
No.
And I'd haunt you too, assholes.
I think the most interesting aspect of this, though, was one of the architectural designs throughout the house was the use of the number 13. And this is seen all over the house. The house had 13 bathrooms. In the 13th bathroom, there are 13 windows. From the 13th bathroom to the room above, there are 13 stairs. The room connected by the 13 stairs above the 13th bathroom also has 13 more windows. There is a stained glass that is reportedly designed by Sarah herself that has 5 blue orbs and 8 golden orbs, equaling 13 orbs total. The hooks in the seance room total to 13. Now, this one is kind of contested because they said the owners could have added more. The ballroom ceiling, the grand ballroom ceiling, is divided into 9 sections, and all but one, so 8 sections, are subdivided into 13 subsections. There are 13 cupolas on the greenhouse. The drains that she chose to use have 13 holes. The stained glass windows that I showed y'all earlier, there's one daisy on it that has 13 petals in significance to her niece, Daisy. The carriage room, yes, she had a carriage room, where the actual carriage sits in that room, there are 13 wooden panels within that room. And if that wasn't enough for y'all to think, oh, maybe it's just architectural design and the way the flat house flows and all that stuff. No, her will is 13 sections long and signed 13 separate times.
Well, it stands to reason, her being into the things that she was into, she was probably heavily into numerology as well.
She was. And that is one thing I'm honestly going to say that I did research. I am not going to discuss on this podcast because we will be here another 3 or 4 hours for me trying to explain it to get you to understand it.
That's what we talked about the evening before you got on the phone with us. So we were on, 4 hours and 22 minutes?
Yeah. There is significant amount of numerology, numerical ciphers that persist within Sir Francis Bacon and have to do with the Shakespearean windows and all of this stuff that you can go and research yourself. You want to go fall down a rabbit hole, go and research the truth about sarahwinchester.com. That's exactly what it's called. It's 48 pages long when I try to print it. It's going to delve it far into numerology, symbology, the Baconian ciphers, numerical ciphers, Pythagorean cipher, K-table cipher, all of this stuff. I do not have enough time to explain it to all of y'all on this podcast, but it is absolutely fascinating.
But we all do know our Pythagorean cipher numbers.
I'm 13. My first name equates to 13.
Yes, you are 13.
Shelly, yours equates to 27, and Ryan, yours equates to 21.
Hey, party.
So the last thing that I want to discuss about her house, and then I'm going to tell y'all my theory on this shit. Is her bedroom. Her bedroom wallpaper that she has in her bedroom. This is Sarah's bedroom right here. This is where she died. It's not the bed she died in, but that's where she died. The wallpaper she chose are 3 crescents interlooped within each other, creating a I can't say that freaking word. That little design, like a Celtic knot.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Looks like a Led Zeppelin symbol.
Quatretra. Yeah, that word. Anyways, I find that fascinating. Why 3 crescents encircling each other? It's just, I don't know. It's fascinating.
Could that symbolize the 3 faces of the moon? Like the new moon, the full moon, and then you got the waxing, the waning, and then the full moon. I mean, could that symbolize the moon phases?
Could. My other thought was it symbolizes her, William, and Annie, symbolically tied together.
Or if you want to go the other way, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
But it shows something, that there was a thought process behind it, that she chose that design, in my opinion. I mean, to choose that specific design, to be like, oh, there's 3 things interlacing each other. She had to think something in her head. No, these symbolize this. A lot of symbology.
Yeah, she was too smart not to have had a reason for it.
Look, here is my theory. This is my theory and my little conclusion on Little Miss Sarah Winchester. There are 2 sides to all this, and I was only able ever to find 2 sides. That's it. It's either they believed in the paranormal, they did not believe in the paranormal. My belief is that it's somewhere in between. I think it had to do with the paranormal to an extent, and I think what she ended up doing was she used her studies and her teachings and her intellect that she gained throughout her life to create an intricate, ever-evolving live-in puzzle to thwart whatever presence she felt she needed to keep them from being able to find the ultimate prize, which is her. I think that explains a lot of the labyrinth design of the house to get them to be frustrated and to give up and to lose hope of ever finding her. And the reason why is because all the teachings that we went over in the beginning with the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Theosophy, Rudolf Steiner, all of that stuff, and their belief that that's way outside the box, and this ever-evolving universe, as well as the soul's immortality, karma. It's just, they're all around celestial mysteries, ancient wisdoms, or some continued life for the spirit. You have the rise of spiritualism, which at its peak was between 1840 and 1920, or 1920s, 1840s, 1920s. She was born in 1839 and died in 1922. Spiritualism was at the peak of her entire lifespan. You know, not only that, you couple it with she loses a baby, a mother, a father, a father-in-law, a husband, a sister. By the time that she's 45 years old, you cannot tell me that this woman with all this money in the height of spiritualism, grieving the way that she does and not being able to cope with what in process death, that she did not use spiritualism as a coping tool. Now, whether that turned into the spirits are haunting you, that's a whole nother thing. I don't know if it's the spirits of the Winchester rifle or anything like that. I think that something that the house sits on has something to play in it. I don't think that she's haunted by every spirit that the Winchester rifle slayed. And the fact that not one article, book, or biography that I read had herself or any relative after her death deny any claims that were ever said about her. And my theory on this is that this is a textbook case that because you cannot make the evidence of absence the absence of evidence. Just because it's not recorded, you cannot dismiss it unless you are 100% verifiably confirmed that she did not participate in spiritual mediumship or occultism of some sorts. I will say it again. The evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence. This is textbook definition case right here. So my belief is that it had to do with both. I think she used what she used to build this ever-evolving puzzle that had to do with numerical ciphers, architecture, and all this stuff to thwart whatever she felt she was being haunted by, to keep them from the ultimate prize, which is her.
I am with you on that. I think you're absolutely right. And I think according, like you were saying, the ever-evolving universe was part of her upbringing and what she was thinking. So therefore, in order to make sure something didn't get at her, her house had to be ever-evolving. There had to be some sort of moving part.
I agree. Now, I'm not going to say that some of the things can't be explained, like the staircase, the doors with the wall, or the staircase leading to the roof, the doors with the wall, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did have an earthquake in this area. That's an easy explanation for all of that. But just because it doesn't exist in her life, you can't just automatically just write off and say, no, it didn't happen. When there's nobody out there that is denying the claims to it. There's no proof that she didn't do it. Therefore, just because it's not there isn't your evidence of the absence of it from her life.
Well, now she was very wealthy, and she was she did even, you know, during when times were tight, she kept those contractors employed. Do you think at any point she was like, I got to make sure they have a job, because, you know, people in my family were contractors, and once their job was over, you know, they didn't have any money until they got their next job. And there's some theory and speculation that she kept building onto the house because she had become so, like you said, one of the primary builders. She'd become very fond of the children, and that even had the children living there. I think that those people became her friends and her intimate circle. And so if the job's over, then they're gone. Could it have been truly a lonely lady that was like, I love these children, and if you leave, then they go with you, and all I got's old, you know, vulture ass Daisy over here waiting for me to kick the bucket, and she can sell off all my shit. But you have these wonderful children, and you've kind of become my family because I've kept building onto this house. I even have a place for you to stay. I'm not that could have been part of it.
I'm not going to deny that she didn't have a charitable aspect to her in her life. She was known to donate so much money.
Not just charitable. She was getting something from those people being there.
She was. But where I'm going with this is that a lot of people say that she kept everybody employed the way that she did because there was this 4-year-long depression that hit America in the late 1800s. Okay. I can understand that. I can see where during that time between 1893 and 1897, they're talking about the Panic of 1893, when America went through the Depression and unemployment was 40% in some states. And I can see where she loves these people. She's been around these people for so long. She wants to keep them employed. So I'm going to keep building. But it doesn't make sense to me that the construction in the way that it happened, started almost immediately. You know, so it's before she even knew these people, before the Depression even came along. She hired them on at 3 times the rate. Is there a charitable aspect to it? Yes. And I think that's another one of those things that gets pushed to one side or the other. I think it's a combination of a few different things, but it's hard. I'm trying to put it into words. I find it hard to be like, oh my God, I love these people. I want to keep them around. So I'm going to destroy this, build this, destroy that, build that, redo that, and stuff of that nature when it was that from the get-go. Now, unless you're talking about she's paying for companionship from the get-go, that I can understand.
And that could have been simply what it was, to have someone around, to not be isolated. Because again, she picked a place that she was alone. I mean, you know, Daisy wasn't much damn company.
She did, but she didn't at the same time. She had family there. She had friends there. So it wasn't like she was alone. I mean, the guy that took her to the ranch had a house nearby, and that's how he knew about the ranch, that it was for sale, because he was close by. That doesn't mean
that he visited her.
But there is records that she went and visited her family very often. There are multiple people who stayed on the grounds who actually said there are some times where weeks and maybe months, she was not at the house. She was at her sister's house, or she was, you know, blah, blah, blah. But construction would still take place and things would still happen. So I don't think she had this feeling of being alone, just because she did have people and went and spent time with these people and adored these people that were her family and her friends. I'm not saying she didn't feel the same for her workers. She probably did. I just don't see it starting out as, I'm paying for your companionship, and this is my idea, and this is how I'm going to keep you around. I can see that taking place when the Depression hit, and being like, oh, okay, you know, construction's going to do it, you know, da 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 da. I don't know. I just don't see it from the beginning as being, I'm paying for companionship, because she had a circle there. She had.
So do you think that from the beginning, her thought was, I'm just going to start building and I don't care what happens. I just want to keep things building because I feel like I'm cursed? Or do you think that she thought, you know what, I think we need to make this, I don't like the way this looks. Let's kind of fix this. And then it kind of got into her, well, okay, I like that, but I did my little seance by myself, and I I got an uneasy feeling. Let's go ahead and add on another room. Do you think it was something that kind of evolved? I don't think she ever started out to continually build. You've seen these people that they do one little renovation on their house, and then suddenly they've pretty much gutted the thing after they've added a room. Now they've got to get the whole house, and it becomes this obsession in changing, and it basically keeps them surprised.
I think that they're absolutely. Go ahead, Ryan.
I say something that just crossed my mind. We do know that she was very into things that were very symbolic because of the nature of the things that she was into. Mm-hmm. So what if maybe somehow in her mind, and we all know how people like process grief differently. Mm-hmm. What if in her mind and in her life, she had to continue to build on her house because it was almost symbolic of her ever moving forward?
That's a really good theory.
Well, it's kind of I guess that's in a way of what it is. If you take the article where it is reported that she purportedly said and told her friends, I've got a message from the spirit world that the hammers ever cease. All will be fine as long as the hammers never cease on the grounds or in the building. Yeah, I can see your point, because in a very literal sense, I have to keep going forward. So therefore I have to keep building. I think the issue with the skeptical part of it, where people don't believe the paranormal is pulled into it, is that they like to leave those portions of the story out, which does it a disservice, in my opinion.
Yeah, trying to make the narrative fit what they believe, right?
Right. I mean, there were some things I'm enthralled about this house. I've never done a deep dive research about all this stuff. When I first got into this, I was like, way back when, I was like, oh yeah, it's straight up paranormal. She was a crazy woman. She was a kook, you know. But now it's like I have so much, almost admiration and respect for Sarah Winchester, because she was so smart and so intricate with her design. I really truly believe that in a time of spiritualism on the rise, and the way that she was brought up and her teachings and the way that she studied, she truly probably believed, I'm speculating here, that there was something after her, maybe a curse, maybe something else. I don't know. It could have been the angry spirits. I don't know. But I truly believe that the woman was building some type of puzzle. It's just the way some things flow, and then you have secret passages, and then the hidden numbers and the hidden details, and the use of ciphers and symbology and numerology, and that's more than just your basic love of architecture.
It reminds me of the Da Vinci Code.
I know. I mean, that's exactly what I think. I mean, this would be like I can see Robert Langdon solving this damn puzzle, being like, oh, there she is, found her. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think that it's a mixture of both worlds. I think it's a mixture of the physical and the paranormal. I'm entirely with you, because think about this too, and think about some of the things we've even talked about in the past. She focused so much energy and so much thought into something is after her, I have to continue to do this. What if she inadvertently, accidentally either A, created something, or B, invited something into her life, and that's why she continued to build as well, and that's the paranormal aspect of it. So,
well, you have, I mean, you have paranormal claims in the house today as it stands. You can go look up Winchester Mystery House swinging chandelier, and it's going to be the first video that pulls up on Google, and you're going to see one of the chandeliers doing like this. That happened at the end of a tour, when that tour was the only tour that was in the house whenever they were finishing up around midnight that night. And you just see the chandelier over the table swinging like this. And it is in the middle of a big round table, not like somebody could just walk up and just go and hit it. I mean, they would have to get up on the table, stand on the table, and push this thing. And they come across the window, and it is just swinging.
Have there been any claims of sightings of her in the home?
Not of her. No, not that
Okay.
I was able to find. The claims are chains. They hear chains rattling, which doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess it could with some of the work that might have been going on in the house. Whispers, disembodied voices, and footsteps. The chandelier swinging or objects moving, things disappearing and reappearing. And then the most famous spirit is I forget his name. I call him the wheelbarrow ghost because that's what they kept referring him to. He's seen in the basement, and he seems to be continually working in the afterlife. He's seen rolling a wheelbarrow in the basement. So with all these different claims and video now starting to surface, that also, in my opinion, lends credibility to the paranormal aspect, and that you can't just disregard it, that it wasn't there to begin with. Now, on the other hand of that, is it something that people throughout all the years hearing these rumors and thinking this way, just like we believe with Yorktown, which if you haven't watched that episode 1 and 2, the people bringing that thought process in with them, did they create that to manifest it in the Winchester house after Sarah had died?
That's kind of where I'm leaning a little bit.
So before everybody jumps to the paranormal, and again, you know me, I'm the one who's going to ask the question in order to debunk it. Is it possible that, being that I'm someone that has a little bit of a touch of this with my packing and unpacking and folding and unfolding and having, could it have been she had a touch of OCD? And that now she had to have the number 13 everywhere because she had to repeat things like in 13 times, or, you know, and now that I have 13, I have to have 13 everywhere. And could that have been a reason for the continual building? Because this room doesn't have 13 of anything in it, so now I've put 13 in it because that 13 is the number I have to have. And could it have been like me packing and unpacking my suitcase until I get my suitcase right? I have to keep packing it and unpacking it, and I'll unpack it and pack it 2 or 3 times a day until that suitcase is how I want it. Could
I know.
There have been
I've
a
seen
touch?
it happen.
Yes, Ryan is a witness to my packing and unpacking the suitcase OCD. Could it have been that she possibly had a touch of OCD? Could it have been that even though she believed in the spiritual and all of this, could it have been that, I don't have any things 13 in this. Well, now that number, okay, that number isn't divisible by 13. I can't break it. Okay, so if I add 2 more rooms here, and if I add 2 more doors, you can see how this could happen with someone who gets obsessed with a number. And could that be, and not saying there wasn't something spiritual involved in it, but it kind of sounds to me like someone who has a bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder with a number. Again, I ain't trying to stomp on the paranormal. I'm just trying to throw in another aspect.
Could be. Yeah, it could be. But I think you would see it throughout the entire house.
Yeah.
I think the choices she would have made in her decor and in the layout and in how the walls leaned or connected and the angles in the wall and the roof and all that stuff.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's not how OCD works. It's one thing you fix on, and mine is packing and unpacking my suitcase. I don't go and fold the clothes in my closet or in my drawers. It's just my suitcase. That's the only place I get real OCD about.
If you're saying that the number 13, that she's OCD about the number 13, and now I need to add 2 more doors here because there's not 13, or another room here because there's not 13, it can't be divisible by 13. Or if you're trying to do all that, it's going to correlate in a large variety of ways that this house is built, and in ways that the space between the window and the corner, or how this lines up with this. I mean, she would have fixated on that so much.
But she does, even on 13 pages in her will. Just because in certain areas, it doesn't mean you have to have 13 every single space in every single moment. Like I said, it doesn't have to be everywhere. It just has to be somewhere visible. Somewhere visible and here. That I've made the 13 available in this area.
So I'm sorry, Ryan, I don't mean to cut you off, but one of the things that I will touch on that I didn't say I was going to touch on is in the numbers of it all.
I knew I could get you back around to it.
I know, but just because you're on a point, and I think I need to say it because it's prevalent to what you're talking about right now in this moment. The number 13 and a lot of Kabbalistic, Freemason, Baconian, that type of stuff. They're for Sir Francis Bacon. A lot of
theologies.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Is the ultimate number of balance. It is what you want to deduce it to. It is how am I trying to say?
It's also religious. There were 12 disciples and Jesus at the Last Supper. There were 13. So yeah, it has every kind of religious undertone. 13 throws through many different theologies and religious, themes.
But what I'm saying is if you were to read the rest of the numerology, symbology, and ciphers that are in the house with the play of the number 13, it pulls all of that together. I mean, it's I know a lot of things where it's like the simplification when it comes to numerical ciphers and stuff like that. You can add any number to anything and pretty much get to where you want to. That is my belief. That's what I believe. I can make any number appear that you want me to make appear. Some people don't believe that. Some are all about the numerology, and I'm not here to thwart them. That's what you believe. More power to you, and good for you. I mean, have a belief system. I think that's the most important thing of all. But her use of the number 13 in I wish I could go more in depth. I wish we could have a 5-hour conversation about this woman.
We already have. That's why I was dragging you up to this.
But because it goes all the way back to even the front gates. On the front gates, there are daisies, and behind the daisies, there are sun rays. And there are not just 12 to make it, evenly. There are 13. She's added an extra one. When you enter the gates, it is said that she had 2 palm trees planted right there that are the symbolism of oh my God, I done forgot it because I didn't write it down because I wanted to discuss it. I believe it's Cain and Abel. I think it's Cain and Abel right there. They now make you enter into the back of the house, or where she normally would have entered into the carriage house area, which is just like in Solomon's tomb. There's a lot of things that correlate to her building this puzzle and the number 13 and the numerical ciphers and numerology and symbology. I seriously think this woman was building a puzzle with her as the ultimate prize inside.
That makes sense to me. And you pretty much hit on everything I was going to say. Just the amount of occultism that she dabbled in and that she knew, and all these and the numerology and the symbolism. I think that's exactly what it was. It wasn't necessarily an obsessive compulsive disorder. It was, hey, these mean something. These symbols have a particular meaning in this particular world that I'm involved in, and I'm going to incorporate this into the design of my home. So, and
that ultimately correlates to, I think that she was hiding from something. I think she was keeping herself safe from something, which meant she had to have believed something was after her in the some sense of the word. What that is, I don't think we'll ever know. I don't know if she believed it was a curse. I don't know if she believed it was the spirits. I don't know if she believed it was her own husband. I have no fucking idea, whatever.
Probably that damn Daisy.
Whatever she believed in at that time, unfortunately, has died with her. But I don't think that you can. I don't think this is a story you can make strictly paranormal and make strictly not paranormal. I think it's in between. I think you have to look everything as a whole and bring it all together. Because
throw in the science, the reality, and a little metaphysical kind of sprinkled in there to get her whole picture.
Exactly, and to come to the conclusion that Sarah was not a mad woman. She was not a kooky widow that was reclusive. This woman was smart, an intellect for her time. She wasn't just a grieving widow with money to spend and running away from spirits. There's so much more to her than that.
And might have had a little touch of kooky. Those people that are super smart usually have a lot of hang-ups.
She might have.
Maybe had a little kooky in there, but
is that why I'm kooky? Oh, thanks, Shelley.
Well, I was talking about me having the OCD.
Yeah. Well, y'all, we're gonna wrap it there because I think that's a good way to end it right there. Thanks for the debate on that, Shelley. Thanks for
You're welcome. It wouldn't be fun if we all agreed, right?
It wouldn't. It absolutely wouldn't. Well, we want to thank y'all for joining for this week of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Always remember, whatever social media channel you are watching us from, we're not just on that social media channel. We are across the board. We don't use one or all channels for everything, so you might be missing out on some things. So make sure you go follow us across the board. And also, don't forget, we've got the Gregg County Historical Museum overnight investigation tickets are on sale for right now. That is June the 11th from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we are
11
about
days.
It's coming
11
up quick.
days, 11 days from it. So we've got just a small handful of tickets left. So if you'd like to join us on that, make sure you go and purchase those. As
Come
well
hang
as
out with us.
our Old Park tickets in October are also on sale for October 7th.
They're
and the
almost
8th.
gone, y'all.
They are. It is, as far as I know, the only 2-night investigation that is being offered in the state of Texas. So you get to come hang out with us for, I think it's like 41 hours. It's something ridiculously
We won't
stupid.
make you stay there the whole time. We'll let you go get something to eat and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't got to take us with you.
Because I'm going to be going snarfing down some shit too. So
Mhm.
anyways, Shelly, take it away.
So another way that you can hang out with us a little bit more if you just can't get enough of us right here, you can go and become a Patreon member, and you can hear what we really talk about, because we discuss a lot of things. Tonight was, if you really want to know what a server thinks about you whenever you walk in at 10 minutes till the restaurant closes, we're going to tell you. It's $5 a month. There are no tiers. $5 a month, you get everything: Spirits with Shelly, Ryan's reviews, and Bedtime Stories with Blake, and hear what we really talk about. And what else can they do, Ryan?
Go on Apple Music and Spotify, rate and review us, or anywhere where you get your podcasts. And the more you do that, the more it boosts our signal and the more we can do for you guys.
Absolutely.
So, yes. But we're excited to have this investigation coming up here in a few days. I'm getting pumped because it's been a minute. And so
we got so many new toys to play with. It's unreal.
Yes.
And yes, we have new toys, an energy pack, which is brand new. You've probably seen it on about 2 different ghost shows. It's that new. We have one. Came in the other day. The guys haven't even seen it yet. I've got it. I'm going, yes, it's here. And also, hey, you guys, share us in honor of Memorial Day, and thank you to everyone whose family dealt with the people who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you so very much. And share us with somebody on a military base. You know, somebody who may be stuck and they're on a base and you maybe want to give them a laugh. Instead of say, oh my God, you got to watch these 3 idiots. Share us. I mean, we might make them laugh on a day whenever they're confined to the barracks because, you know, whatever, they can't go out, they can't do anything. Share us. I like a man in uniform. Hey.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Go ahead and wrap it up, Blake. I'm getting a little too personal here.
Y'all, as always, my name is Blake Smith, and for my friends in the paranormal, Miss Shelly Pruitt and Ryan Roberts, and as always, we will see you